Okay, imagine waking up tomorrow morning, scrolling through the news, and seeing that the United States is officially no longer the world's most powerful country. For decades, the global reality has been totally shaped by American dominance, right? We're talking the largest military, the most influential companies, the world's reserve currency, but, well, that landscape is shifting. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're breaking down the ultimate geopolitical heavyweight matchup, the United States versus China.
So could China actually replace America on the global stage? That is the massive question looming over literally all of international relations right now. But is this global rivalry really as simple as the dramatic headlines want us to believe? To figure that out, we kind of have to look past the political theater. We need to look under the hood and examine the actual engines running both of these countries, because they operate on fundamentally different levels.
To do that, we're going to compare them across 5 key areas: economy, military, technology, global influence, and finally, the one single factor that will probably decide the next century.
But first, we really need to set some perspective here. The US has held the undisputed lead for a long time, sure, but China's trajectory over the last 40 years, it's basically an unprecedented geopolitical speed run. In an incredibly condensed time frame, they went from a largely developing nation in the 1980s to becoming the quote-unquote factory of the world, and now an absolute economic superpower in the 2020s. Their sheer scale just completely rewired global supply chains. So, who actually holds the advantage right now? Let's dive in.
All right, part 1, economy.
When we look at their economies, we're really contrasting 2 entirely different systems of power. It's almost like apples and oranges. America's dominance is super anchored in intangible assets. Think intellectual property, advanced finance, software architecture, global brand recognition. China, on the other hand, wields this unbelievable command of physical supply chains and heavy manufacturing. Literally millions of physical products, from the infrastructure running our communications to the massive wave of new electric vehicles, they all start their journey right inside Chinese factories.
But here's the thing. Dominating physical output isn't the only path to the top. Having the biggest factories doesn't automatically mean you hold the most leverage. Just look at the absolute pillars of the American economy: Apple, Microsoft, Google, Nvidia, Amazon, Meta. These companies are generating GDP-level value strictly through innovation, data, and software ecosystems. America's economy is still deeply entrenched as one of the most productive on Earth, because economic strength isn't just about sheer industrial mass. It's about extremely high-value output.
Okay, let's move on to part 2, military. Now, the defense comparison tells a completely different, highly strategic story. The US obviously maintains a vast global reach, outspends every other nation by a mile, and has decades of critical combat and logistics experience. But China? They're playing an entirely different game. They aren't trying to match American bases all over the globe right now. Instead, they're pouring resources into rapid naval expansion and advanced area denial missiles. They're specifically designing this to dominate their own backyard. They've rapidly evolved into a highly capable competitor that's actively shifting the balance of power across the Indo-Pacific.
Which brings us to part 3, technology.
So you might have heard of this concept called the splinter net. We're not just looking at a race to build faster microchips anymore, we're literally watching the creation of entirely parallel technological universes. The US has led the digital world for a long time through its deeply integrated ecosystem. But China isn't just building foreign designs anymore. Actually, scratch that, they're way past that. Companies like Huawei, Tencent, BYD, and Alibaba are anchoring entirely self-sufficient, fiercely competitive tech ecosystems of their own. And this is absolutely crucial. Whoever controls the fundamental architecture of future tech, we're talking AI, quantum computing, they're going to dictate the future global economy. The stakes here are existential. It's about building the operating systems that the rest of the planet is going to rely on for decades. But you know, even with the best tech in the world, a superpower still needs other countries to buy into its system.
Let's pivot to part 4, global influence.
This is such a fascinating clash of soft power philosophies. America basically exports security guarantees and institutional trust. For decades, the US has deliberately built up this deep network of alliances. NATO in Europe, strong partnerships with Japan, Australia. China, however, projects influence by exporting tangible, physical infrastructure. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, they are aggressively funding roads, ports, and railways across the developing world. They are essentially trading capital for long-term strategic leverage.
So, looking at these wildly contrasting strategies, diplomatic alliances on one hand, global infrastructure on the other, it leads directly to our biggest question: who is actually better positioned for the future?
That brings us to part 5, the next century.
Ultimately, it all comes down to this massive structural balancing act: experience versus momentum. The United States still holds a definitive edge when it comes to institutional experience, driven by its innovation hubs, its unmatched military reach, and those deep global alliances we just talked about. But China operates with the sheer force of historic momentum. They are just relentlessly advancing through centralized long-term planning, unrivaled manufacturing, and those sweeping global infrastructure projects.
But the real takeaway here isn't just about one side winning and the other totally disappearing. The reality is that our global economy, the tech in our living rooms, and international security are all going to be shaped by the immense gravity of both these systems at the exact same time. The most important thing isn't guessing who the single victor will be, it's understanding how the rest of the world is going to adapt to an era defined by two competing poles of power.
So what do you think? Will the United States successfully use its institutional experience to maintain global dominance? Or is China's sheer, relentless momentum eventually going to overtake the established order? It really is the defining puzzle of our time. Thanks for diving into the source material with us on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.